welcome to Plus Added Time. My name is Nathan, here for the first time and very happy to be here, taking over from Scott, who I'm sure will be back on the airwaves soon. But this is kind of just an intro episode to let you guys know who I am. Once again, I am Nathan. You can find me on Twitter at Nathan Greenaway. And also, because it's been an international week, there's not a hell of a lot going on. Unless you love international football. I like it to a point, but I have found this a little bit pointless with everything else going on in the world, especially with it being the Nations League. But then it happened. Suddenly, out of nowhere, came this giant restructuring plan headed up by Liverpool and my team, Manchester United. Don't all switch off at once if you don't like them. Just listen in. Maybe I'll surprise you. Maybe I won't. So I'm just kind of going to go around the horn, look at kind of the internationals, and then dive into this giant proposal, which is hopefully, in the end, after some negotiating, going to save the EFL, the English Football League, the leagues beneath the almighty Premier League, which are struggling to breathe, struggling to survive on just a day-to-day operations. So looking kind of at England, since I am English, beat Wales, looked alright, good goal for Dominic Calvert-Lewin on his debut, and then the one that actually mattered to a point, if you care about the Nations League, against Belgium. And when the side came out, when it got announced who Gareth Southgate was putting out there, my initial reaction, much like everyone else that I saw on Twitter, was 3 right backs. That's a lot of right backs, considering generally you only need 1. Maybe 2 if you want to play one as a right-sided centre-half and 1 at wing-back. But to have 3 on the pitch, that was a lot. The 3 were Kieran Trippier, who was playing left wing-back, Trent Alexander-Arnold, who was playing right wing-back, and Kyle Walker, who was playing as the right-sided centre-half. And then the side just looked very negative just from the layout. I don't know what Jack Grealish needs to do to get a start. I can only think at this point that you've got to buy into those conspiracy theories that, well, if he was playing for a Manchester United or a Liverpool or someone like that, he would be straight in that side. But I think with Gareth, he's got his favourites. He loves Kieran Trippier. Kieran Trippier is a good player. He can swing in a great ball. He did so for Connor Cody against Wales. But when we've got so many fullback options in England, we are absolutely blessed with fullback options. You've got to ask, why are you converting a right-sided player to play kind of on the left when it doesn't seem massively necessary? But Gareth, as we say, he's got his favourites. Rushing Jordan Henderson back seemed unwise. If you're a Liverpool fan, I'm sure you were kind of panicking the entire game, thinking, please don't go down, please don't go down. He's not played a lot of football. We saw the thing about Harry Kane being injured beforehand, but then he came on anyway, and you've got to ask yourself why. If you were Jose and a Spurs fan, you must have been crying just at the prospect of him coming on when he could probably have massively used the rest. But I think with Gareth, it's not surprising that he put out a negative kind of looking side, as in negatives in the way they were going to approach the game. It wasn't a negative looking side in terms of ability. Like Declan Rice is a good player. Like, he's a very good player. And it kind of showed how negative England were going to approach the game in the early goings. Although they had a large chunk of possession, Belgium were very easily hitting on the counter. Carrasco had a goal ruled out for offside. Then Eric Dyer. That's a big mistake. But it was also a big mistake from Eric, who gave away the penalty that Lukaku smashed away. And England massively kind of rode their luck in this game. Like, the penalty got back for Marcus Rashford to convert. And then Mason Mount's incredible deflected effort, I think, off Toby Alderweireld, straight into the net to give England, in a way, an undeserved win. Like, in the second half, I don't think we looked quite as bad. I just don't know why, when we're a country with so much attacking brilliance. Like Jadon Sancho only made a cameo, I believe. Like Harry Kane isn't at full fitness. Dominic Calvert-Lewin, he didn't look quite as sharp in this match, but I don't think he had a lot to really feed off for large parts of the game. Jack Grealish wasn't on the pitch. Saka, who can play wing back, wasn't on the pitch. And like Belgium also had a lot of players missing. Like Eden Hazard hasn't been anywhere near his best for Real Madrid, and a lot of that is down to injuries. But I think the negative approach for England left a lot to be desired, and it kind of just made people go a bit, oh. But international football, unlike club football for a lot of people, it is entirely about results. It's entirely results based. You don't spend all your time together as an international side getting ready for matches like you do at club level, where you can make a kind of a stronger argument that style is as close to being as important as a result. For me, that's never really been my thing, as you'll probably come to learn on this podcast. I'm very much kind of, when it comes down to it, did you win? And although Gareth, despite having some brilliant attacking players left out of the side, he did get the result. Some of that was down to luck. A huge part of that was down for luck. Mason Mount's deflected effort going into the top corner, completely baffling. I think it was Mignolet who was in goal, because Courtois is injured, I think. Kind of got Gareth a result that perhaps he didn't deserve. But hopefully we can just see in the ending kind of loosen up and be more willing to trust these young players. Now, some of these attacking players who I have mentioned weren't in the side. Like Mason Greenwood wasn't there, who's only 18 or 19. I think he's 18. And Callum Hudson-Odoi isn't in the side, and Maddison, I think, only made a cameo appearance or didn't play. I can't remember now off the top of my head, and things like that. So there was some people who perhaps aren't really in. This is really a funny time with a lot of clubs kind of catching up with fixtures, and it is so congested because of everything that's happened in the world that perhaps you could be a bit more forgiving for kind of a more cautious approach. But let's look at some positives for England. Connor Cody, in his debut, looked very good. I think he's got a future as kind of a back three. Like, if we're going to get into what kind of England lineups we would perhaps pick, for me it would be a back three of Joe Gomez, Harry Maguire, and then bringing in a Connor Cody with a Trent Alexander-Arnold certainly at right wing back. I don't think there's any competition for that place, unless you want to go way more defensive and kind of finally call up Aaron Wan-Bissaka, who isn't even in the squad, and there's talks of that he might be kind of picking, I think it's the Democratic Republic of Congo to represent an international level, because he can't get a call up for England for whatever reason. And I think some of that is just because Gareth prefers Trippier as a player, where that's fine. International managers always tend to have their favourites, especially when it comes down to an English side. Kind of on the left side, you're probably looking more at Chilwell. I think Luke Shaw, being a Manchester United fan, I don't really know if he pushes to take that spot from Chilwell, but Chilwell has had some injury problems lately. But I think Saka has to be the one that you got to look at if you're going to play wing backs. He's so good for Arsenal when he's in full flight, but Arsenal tend to play him kind of further up. So who knows what's going to happen there? Like, players that we kind of expected to be pushing for that spot by this point, kind of Ryan Sessegnon at Spurs, has been sent out on loan to the Bundesliga. I can't remember which side now, but he's absolutely nowhere near it. So I think it's going to end up being Chilwell, and kind of hopefully Jack Grealish in midfield can finally get a spot. You don't really know what poor Jack has to do at this point, like, unless he starts scoring hat-tricks every week. But I would love to see kind of a Maddison, Grealish and Henderson. Kind of Henderson is that general in midfield, that captain. It kind of keeps the youngsters in check a little bit with their runs and make sure they get back. But we know Jack Grealish will stick his foot into a challenge with those almighty calves of his. But moving away from England, kind of looking Northern Ireland, they're in a good spot to kind of qualify for the Euros now. Hopefully they can get that job done. and as they kind of move on after getting the win, and I think hopefully they can make it. You want them to kind of be there. You want kind of to see the Green Army there, really, and hopefully they can do that. Hopefully they can get kind of the job done and qualify as they face Slovakia in kind of the final round of the qualifying groups. So good luck to them. Hopefully they can pull that off, and next time I do this podcast we can be singing their praises as they go. But one other side I just wanted to touch on briefly is Norway. Norway have kind of the talent all over the pitch. Obviously, everyone knows about Erling Haaland, who plays for Dortmund. If you don't know who he is, Google him. He scores a lot of goals. He looks like one of the best strikers in Europe right now. He always seems to be on form. He's come unstuck a couple of times in big games, but to not qualify, they went out in kind of the promotion rounds. The kind of the last chance kind of thing, to an uninspired looking Serbian side who, congratulations to them, I'm not taking anything away from them, but Norway, they just look like they've got all the talent in the world. They got Odegaard as well, who's now actually playing in the Madrid side, and a lot of people will remember that name if you don't know what he's been up to from kind of a few years ago when he was only sort of 16, 17. He suddenly signs for Real Madrid, and then he ended up going out on loan quite a few times, and now he's really starting to look the part in a Madrid shirt. And I just think there's such a missed opportunity for them to not make it through. They do have kind of other players there. They've got Burge as well, who plays for Sheffield United, and I just expected a little bit more from them, but not to be this time. And that squad again is so young, and they'll hopefully next time they'll be right back around, because it'd be such a shame if Haaland and Odegaard never kind of get to demonstrate what they can do on an international stage. But they've got all the years ahead of them still, so maybe I'm just overreacting kind of a little bit to kind of this defeat and this not quite living up to the talent that they've got. But let me know what you think about all things international football. That's at Nathan Greenaway, and or check out Project Dits. If you'd rather tweet them, then go ahead and do that. Right before we move on to the EFL kind of proposal from Manchester United and Liverpool, which has caused such a ruckus in the world, Project Dits has partnered up with Superkicks. And if you do go onto their website or onto their page from there, you can find all sorts of awesome looking clothes and everything like that. That's at SPRKIX, or you can go to their website, which is sprkix.com. Use the promo code DITS, DITS, and you'll get 10% off. And of course, who pays for shipping these days? No one. So it's free. So go and give that kind of a little look. See what you find. They've got some really cool t-shirts and loads of designs. They've got a great looking logo, and you'll look awesome. All you wrestling fans out there. You don't even need to be a wrestling fan to appreciate it either. You just got to appreciate looking good. So head over to sprkix.com, promo code DITS, DITS, 10% off, and of course free shipping. We don't pay to have things posted in 2020, do we? That would really tip this year over the edge if shipping suddenly wasn't free, but it is still free. So there you go. Over to this EFL proposal, the last thing I'm going to talk about kind of on this quick kind of catch-up episode where I just kind of introduce myself. Hopefully you are enjoying the listen. Do let me know. Again, it's at Nathan Greenaway. And this radical reform plan, we have been warned this could have damaging impact, which also, because you used the word could mean it doesn't. So I'm going to summarize kind of the main points from this plan. It came from kind of secret talks that have been going on between the owner of Liverpool, the Fenway Sport Group, and apparently Joe Glazer, who's the co-chairman of Manchester United. And these are kind of the main bullet points. It would cut the Premier League from 20 to 18 clubs, in line with quite a few other leagues across Europe, like the Bundesliga, and the Championship, League One, and League Two would each retain the 24 sides. The bottom two teams in the Premier League will get relegated automatically, with 16th place team joining the Championship playoffs. The League Cup and Community Shield will be abolished. The Community Shield, I don't really understand why you need to abolish that. It's kind of just like a season starter, but I guess it is seen as a bit of a friendly these days. Personally, I would prefer to keep that. The League Cup, I have a different idea for the League Cup, which I'll run through after I've gone through this. Now, parachute payments would be scrapped. Now, the thing with parachute payments, some people might be like, whoa, that's quite an important part. But for parachute payments, it really weights the Championship in favour of those relegated sides. Like, they go down, they get a big chunk of money because they've taken a lot of more expenses being in the Premier League, but they did get that huge TV money. And then to send like a club down and then give them loads of money as a parachute payment, surely that just means they're going to invest in the best players they can get in the Championship, or some players that are happy to step down for a nice wage from the Premier League. I just think it has always made the Championship a little bit more unfair, and that's why we've got this thing of yo-yo clubs that always seem to go up and then come straight down. I'm not going to name any names so I don't upset anyone, West Brom, but I'm kind of glad that would be gone. Now, another point, this is just a proposal at the minute. A £250 million rescue fund would be made available to the EFL. That's huge. The EFL, everyone knows what happened with Bury and clubs like that, and Macclesfield are heading that way. One of the guys over at my main podcast group, Rogue Opinions, who writes for us, Anthony, he's a long-suffering Oldham fan. He's always talking about how they're in massive trouble. Leyton Orient chairman came out and said they're really struggling as well, and that a lot of clubs are going to be kind of in the shit in not too long, especially after everything that's happened with no fans. And then £100 million will be paid to the FA to make up for some lost revenue. So all that sounds pretty good. So you're probably thinking, if you've not really read into this, what's the catch? This sounds fantastic. Like, this sounds great. You're basically giving people money. Other than the fact the Premier League is cut to 18 teams, but there's just so many fixtures that maybe that just needs to happen to kind of finally ease things up. The Premier League would also hand over 25% of its income to the EFL. And I've already said, the EFL as a structure isn't working. The EFL, even before COVID-19, had really struggled. There was just too much money in the Premier League. There was too much of a financial burden. Clubs are in ridiculous amounts of debts. There's been some dodgy ownership over the years, like Blackpool springs to mind, that had really just kind of hurt clubs again and again and again. And there just wasn't enough money to kind of keep this structure going, even despite the massive kind of sponsorship deals and everything like that. It's always been a case that there are clubs on the brink. And maybe that will just always be a thing. Maybe some clubs just aren't run properly. But even some clubs that have been run pretty well, the money just runs dry because there isn't enough. When you're kind of talking about the tens of millions in the Premier League, and then that's kind of ebbed down into the Championship a little bit, with some players, some people, clubs paying ridiculous fees for players. Like, I remember Wolves when they were signing people before they came up to the Premier League, and it's just so much money that isn't really there, and these clubs just end up just falling and fading away. I remember when that happened to Portsmouth not so long ago, and we end up with situations like a Bury who don't really exist anymore. Bolton have been on the absolute brink as well, and there's other clubs like Macclesfield got a winding up notice not long ago. But here's where kind of the catch happens, and that is that the big six in the Premier League, obviously you got Manchester City, you got Spurs, you got Arsenal, you got Man United, you got Chelsea, you got Liverpool. They would kind of get more rights when it comes to making changes. They're basically asking for more more power, more votes when it comes to trying to make changes to everything like that. Now, outside of kind of the government and the Premier League coming forward and saying this is backroom dealing and everything like that, like, this is just a proposal at this point. It's not definitely going to happen, but they want to change the voting system, and that would impact a lot of things. It would mean that they have more power. Now, the Big Six already have the most amount of money for the most part. Like, there will be some owners who are richer, but the clubs aren't as big, or they've not won as much. They're not in Europe as often. And, like, is that worth kind of the financial benefit to the EFL and to the Football League when the Big Six would effectively seize more control of everything in a more literal sense? Not just financially, they would have more say in what happens. And I don't know that it is at this point. Like, things look so bleak for the EFL a lot of the time when you just see clubs dying away, or clubs super struggling, needing last minute bailouts, needing last minute owners to come in and kind of buy them up. But is it worth kind of handing all that power to a Manchester United and a Liverpool, who can effectively kind of dictate things? And in a way, they're kind of making the Premier League more exclusive by having less clubs in it, which is then going to make it harder to qualify for, because you're going to have two more big clubs, because they're all big clubs in the Premier League, kind of down in the Championship fighting. Are you going to get a Wolves coming up and then becoming very quickly very well established like they have done in just a couple of seasons? That isn't going to happen as often if there's less clubs, because there's more fighting to be done. But the other thing is, it would put a lot more pressure on those clubs in the Premier League who just become mid-table and are kind of just happy to kind of be there the entire time and don't really seem to be going anywhere. Kind of, I don't mean to be super horrible, but a West Ham come to mind. I know West Ham kind of do go down very, very occasionally, but I'm just not sure how this is the most negative thing in the world, which some people seem to think it is. Like, there was already talks of the government stepping in to bail out the EFL, and the Premier League would then bail out the Championship in a way because of all this gigantic amount of lost revenue from everything that's happened. Should the government have to come in and do that? Well, football is worth so much economically to the government that, yeah, maybe they do, but there needs to be a broader fix, because this isn't just a COVID problem. The EFL structure has always been so weak in, like, it's kind of a house of sticks in a way. Like, any kind of breeze at any point was going to kind of rip it apart, and like, it's a big breeze that happened at the end with kind of keeping fans away, which is another topic in of itself. Why are fans still being kept away when we've seen lately in the UK people have been allowed to go into the theatre, into the London Palladium, and kind of not really social distance properly, but you can't go outdoors and watch a football match? It's all a giant mess, and it goes beyond football. But something needs to change, and maybe like handing over all that power to, this isn't me being biased because I'm a Manchester United fan, but handing all that power and the way things are kind of going to be set in the future to a Manchester United, to a Liverpool, and to the clubs like that. I don't think they need that power, but I like the idea. I like the proposal. The EFL does need help. We have a beautiful thing with football in this country. Everyone has a local club. Like, some people's local clubs are the biggest clubs in the country, or things like that. But football is such an integral part of the community in this country. It's what people want to do on their weekends or on their weeknights, and those small, in our minds, those small League Two or League One clubs, like an Oldham, for my friend Anthony, it's so important. It's such a big part of their community, but it can't survive the way that it's going, and I think negotiations need to happen. Some people have come out and been so negative about it and just written it off like nope, nothing. And I think a lot of it is people being afraid of change. I'm too young to remember when the Premier League, or formerly the Premiership, first came in back in the early 90s. But I'm imagining it was the same kind of response of, nope, things are fine as they are. We will keep going. We don't need change. We don't need clubs doing this, that and the other. But you need something because everything is very slowly falling apart for all those clubs that don't have massive established, massive kind of super rich owners. Everything's kind of beginning to fall to bits a little bit, and it's not sustainable anymore. And even when all this COVID madness is over and fans can come back, that isn't going to fix the problems that kind of English football have in the way that it's set up. There needs to be more of a trickle down of this huge amount of money. Liverpool and Manchester United and the other clubs who agree with this have said basically we are willing to do that, but we want something in return. And again, I don't think they should get what they're asking for with this massive kind of voting thing. I think there needs to be at some point kind of a discussion about, is this basically just a power play to try and get to that holy grail of this European Super League that the name seems to crop up every few years, that's what they want to happen. And I don't want that. I don't want it to just become a European Super League. I want it to stay as kind of the English Premier League. But some of the ideas I like. I don't know if I really want to see a shorter league. I'd need to kind of have more of a think about that. As in, I don't know if I want to see less clubs in it. But it might increase competition for places if there's a sustainable financial network in place. Because I don't want to just see clubs massively overspend, fail, get themselves in a load of crap, like has happened so many times in the past. So we shall see. There's going to be a Premier League meeting at some point. Hopefully people won't just go in stupidly angry to it and kind of write this off as as what it is, as being a nothing and not wanting change. I think they need to be open to the fact that it's so blatant that change needs to happen. But I've rattled on long enough about it now. Hopefully, guys, you've enjoyed listening to me on my first time here on Project Dits. Hopefully you've liked some of the things that I've said. If you've not liked some of the things that I've said, then that's fine as well. But let me know either way. My Twitter handle is at Nathan Greenaway. You can always reach me there if you want to discuss or kind of talk about any point that I've raised today. But if you want to hear me more regularly talking about other stuff that isn't just football, you can find me over at Rogue Opinions, at Rogue_opinion on the Twitter. Where you can hear me regularly on all sorts of shows over there, discussing not just sport, but pop culture and a load of other stuff as well. So you can also find our stuff over there over at the Nerdo Network. That's nerdonetwork.com. All our Rogue Opinion stuff goes up on there as well. But guys, thank you for listening, and I will be back next week, maybe with a guest, maybe not. I hope that's not a false promise. It's not a promise of any kind. Bye now.